That big boss, that's special. It ain't no game, but they saying welcome to the second level. Second level. Second level gaming. Second level.
What's up, guys, and welcome to another couch conversation with me, myself, and I, and or Jordan and Keegan as well.
Yeah.
But we will be today talking about franchise fatigue. The reason why we're talking about that is because Call of Duty just released their new kind of teaser trailer for Infinite Warfare.
Infinite Warfare.
And when I watched it, my initial thought was, really? Really? You're going to space now?
Which I actually kind of like.
Which is why we're having a conversation about it. So that
Yeah.
being said, I was upset by it. Keegan, how did you feel?
I honestly had not seen the trailer. I
Great.
knew it came out.
Good start.
Well, I knew it came out and all that, and I know what it's about. I've not played Call of Duty forever, so I could care less about it at this point because I've not played it for a few years, and partially it's because it's the same game every year. So
Right.
I think that's kind of what we're here to talk about is the games and franchises that we think either are good concepts but kind of need to either switch things up
Step it
or take a year off or maybe 5 years off.
Well, let me explain my initial reaction to you, because I was a Call of Duty fan from the origins of Call of Duty. It feels weird every time I say duty. Anytime. Anyway, I got really into it on Modern Warfare 1. Which I think most people did, but I was a big fan of 3 as well. But Modern Warfare 1 was the one that really kind of sparked my interest.
What was the one that came out in 2009? Was that Modern Warfare 2?
know.
The one
that was Modern Warfare 1.
Modern Warfare 2.
Was that the one with the? Which one was the scene at the airport where you shoot everybody?
That's Modern Warfare 2.
That was the first one I played.
Right.
First one I played
So
consistently.
that was my favorite. That was like
I think that's the peak of the franchise.
Yeah, one of the greatest games of all time. And
Modern Warfare 2 or 1?
Two.
I
I think it was
just
the
think
franchise.
they hit a lot of things on the head with that game. They had really good balancing. Yes, they had the like quick scopes and stuff, but that was fun. Like it was something that was almost created from that franchise and made it so that you had to come up with a counterbalance to the problem of quick scoping, or learn how to do it.
And the kill streak
help yourself.
progressions were really
The
nice.
progression was good, the maps were good, and graphically it was enough of an update that when it came out, people were like, oh man, this is actually pretty cool. The story was bullshit, but
I didn't play
you
single
don't
player.
play Call of Duty for the story. You
I
you
do.
play it for the multiplayer. So then, me personally, not a big fan of the Black Ops franchise, never have been. Modern Warfare 3 was a little bit of a kind of a rehash of 2. Then we have Advanced Warfare, which was not a bad game by any.
I think that was them trying to change it up. Like we'd made the same game for the last few years. So like we needed to add, like they did the wall running. I think is cool to have in
I
there.
appreciate that they tried, but then it just didn't. It was getting further and further away from Call of Duty. Like when it was turning into Halo, it was turning into a sci-fi type shooter, which is never what Call of Duty was about. Like people played it because they wanted to play Army. They wanted to play World at War. They wanted to play, through the original wars, and then, in the more modern sense as well. That was enjoyable. But my problem with this is that I saw the trailer. First of all, the graphical step up is, to me, nothing.
I think they're using the same engine as they used
Yeah,
in
like-
the past few.
And
They
blobs.
really haven't honed anything as far as that's concerned. And, again, with the giant space fucking drones and everything, they went out of their way to make it as fantastical as possible, as opposed to making it more like what made Call of Duty.
So with that being said, though, a lot of the feedback they've gotten throughout the years is people don't buy Call of Duties because every Call of Duty is the same. So
Well,
if you go back and play that Army Man thing, how many wars can you do and make it slightly different?
Here's my thought, though, is that a lot of people liked that era. They just want something that is a little different in that era. So the problem was, you have now Unreal Engine 4, is it? And Unreal 4, yeah. And you have all these kind of crazy graphical jumps that have been made since that era. You could have a rich, detailed, beautiful Call of Duty game set in a regular war with regular weapons, and then just have like a pretty fair kill streak, and people would lap it up. If you put your time and effort into like sound effects and in the instance of like an Afghanistan war, or water effects, or the gun effects, and those sort of things that people are really looking for, I think you could still make a really enjoyable Call of Duty. But the problem was they didn't do that. They didn't go for graphical upgrades. They went for how fucking crazy can we make this
And
game?
I mean, I kind of disagree with you on that because I feel like if they did that, they're making the same game over and over and over, and people are gonna be tired. They're like, why should I buy this every year? And maybe that's more of, if they do that, don't release one every year, release one every 2 to 3 years, because why would you want to buy a game that's annualized, that it's just slight tweaks every time? There's no real purpose to it.
Well, people do it all the time with sports games.
I agree, and I think it's dumb that I have to pay $60 for a roster update. I mean, this last Madden was the biggest. The reason I bought this last Madden was because it's such a big update. They added so much to it. They added a lot of bugs to it, but they made such a big jump between what was technically Madden 25 but Madden 15 to Madden 16 that I bought it. And I'm one of those people that tend to buy sports games every 2 years. I wish EA 2K would give you the roster updates for free, which they do online now through the season. Like if somebody gets traded, you can download that most recent roster. I'm sure there's licensing, which is why they don't do it, but I wish they'd give you a roster update for maybe 2 to 3 years, and I'm like, cool, we'll give you a new game in 2 to 3 years, pay the $60, have that last that long. Because, again, it's one of those things, like, graphics can only get so much better in a year, and obviously they're working on these probably for more than a year. I mean, they're probably in development for probably 2, I'm guessing, but not very much.
So here's my thing. It's the consumer's fault that they don't upgrade those things, because, like, I just double-checked sales, like Black Ops 3, which is one of the worst selling ones, still sold after like the 3rd week, like 10 million some odd copies.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at that being $600 million worth of stuff without DLC and all those things. So they're making profit. So like you can't really like begrudge these. Yeah, you can't begrudge these guys. They're like, if we have this thing that we don't have to pay any extra for to like work on, and we're still gonna get on the low end 500 million out of this, and this game cost us 120 million to make. Like,
it's good business.
Why would they? Like, why take
Absolutely.
the time to look at like any of that stuff? And so it's not their fault. Like it's not their fault at all.
And I'm not really blaming the developers per
Yeah.
se. I mean, it's kind of weird. Like, I get it. Like, we are being punished by buying games that.
Well, it's like
we
when
should
people
not
pre-order
buy.
games. Like the mindset is you should not pre-order a game until you see what it is. Like if you like a game, that's cool, but you don't know what you're getting until you actually get the game in your hand and see it. So I pre-order games all the time, which is probably the worst thing you could do, but I do it because I want it day one. I want to get my hands on it, but there's times where, I mean, even I'm going to use Kickstarter or pre-ordering as an example of you're promised this thing, you pre-order it 6 months ago. Well, sorry, we got to take this out and this out and this out. Well, do I want it anymore? Type thing. And if I pre-order it on Sony, not on Sony, not if you do digital.
Yeah.
Not digital.
Yeah. So if you buy it in a store,
on
yes.
GameStop
But if you do digital, they do not allow that.
I don't know. I'm of the mind where perhaps instead of like trying to come up with this fantastical like new take on a game every single time. So I think the answer lies somewhere in the middle, where you have a kind of a Destiny or a Division style game where you have a consistent universe that maybe you build upon, expand, and kind of have something that you can tweak along the way, as opposed to trying to make it more arcadey and more crazy and more like, you know, Halo-like with all the sci-fi jumping off walls and jetpacks and stuff like that. Like, I just think there's a core audience of Call of Duty fans that all got turned off of Call of Duty around the same time. A lot of kids, I think, are picking up on it because they are, frankly, they enjoy that kind of OCD aspect of the game, of just kind of, you know, complete chaos. But, you know, a lot of maybe more mature gamers are going for something similar to Battlefield. So
Yeah.
Maybe that's their target audience. Though. That's the other thing to keep in mind is if they're going for the younger, because obviously, like we said earlier, sales numbers, they're doing something right. They're making lots of money. They come out every year. As much as everybody bitches about it,
do you
they
think people
sell.
do it by default though? Do you think they just like, oh, it's Call of Duty, I gotta buy it? Like they
No.
don't actually ever
So
consider?
I used to. So like I said, Modern Warfare 2 is the first one. I had World at War and I had Modern Warfare 2 are the two I played. I liked Modern Warfare 2 way more because it was arcadey. I didn't like World at War because it felt too realistic, and partially because I sucked at it. I was a little bit better at Modern Warfare 2 because it felt more accessible than the older ones did. And I can get somebody who's grown up with this series. It might feel weird that it's gone that route, but if your goal as a game developer, especially a AAA developer, is to hit as big of an audience you can, you're going to make your game try and become more accessible to everybody, whether it's children or older generation.
So let me put it in another term. What if you had a band that you really liked, and you liked the first 4 or 5 albums that they put out, but suddenly, on the 6th or 7th album, they started to do a completely stylistically different sound that you just didn't jive with at all. You hated it. And you were so looking forward to that band releasing more of the same stuff that you love, just different songs, that suddenly, like, that happened.
So that has happened.
Yeah.
My favorite band, My Chemical Romance, changed their sound when Danger Days came out. Like, they went from a depressing, like, angry to, like, let's be happy. Here's about a guy with a gun. Like, it became a comic book, essentially. And initially, my initial reaction was, what the fuck is this? Like, I don't like this. This is different. I'm not a fan. But it did grow on me. So that's the other thing is, sometimes it'll just be like, I'm done with this. Like, I'll be done with it. But then again, at that point, you may not be the target audience anymore. Because the other example, the counter argument to that is if you're a fan of a band and they release everything the exact same, would you continue buying the album if it's the exact same thing every time?
It's still good.
It's
you know? And that's the problem is, yes, there has to be a certain amount of, like, artistic merit where you do take some what do you call it? Like challenges and some
evolution.
Liberties. Yeah, well, just kind of take some risks, I think is the word I'm looking for. You have to do some things that are different and are exciting and are new, but still keep the core of what made you what you were to begin with. And I feel like Call of Duty has lost that core. Like, they were losing it piece by piece, but eventually I think it's just completely gone now to the point where it is unrecognizable to me as a Call of Duty game. And, you know, and that happens with other franchises too. I mean, talk about Assassin's Creed is a big one. So Assassin's Creed, there was a lot of growth that went throughout that franchise that was positive. So you go from the first Assassin's Creed, which was a good game,
wasn't very
pretty boring.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was good, but it.
Yeah, I mean, it was just the same shit over and over again. But then you have Assassin's Creed 2, probably one of the biggest turnarounds in IP in original IP in like history.
2 and 3
they just
were
kind of absolutely knocked it out of the park. And then they have all these other sub ones from Assassin's Creed 2, all the rest of the Ezio story that were very good. And then Assassin's Creed 3 starts creeping in a little bit of the fatigue again. Number 4 was interesting. They tried something a little different with the pirate thing, but again,
and some people loved it.
Further and further away from what makes it, you know, what it needs to be. Then they went for what they thought was going to be like just Assassin's Creed with updated graphics. With Unity, and that just blew up in their face.
That had issues.
But that was more
that
so
was technical
to do with
issues.
them. Yeah, that was more so to do with being unoptimized for pretty much every system.
Yeah.
But then with Syndicate, I think a lot of people can say that they did pretty well with that. Like, it was a decent game.
Touch Syndicate though because of what had happened.
I mean, they didn't pull it back necessarily, but they definitely they went a bit more to their core with Syndicate. They just kind of said, okay, let's have maybe 2 antagonists, and one can be a girl, and she'll fight differently to the main guy. And then, you know, they tweaked enough things to keep it interesting without ruining what makes it, you know, Assassin's Creed.
So for Call of Duty, with you then, what would that be? Because they've done World War I, World War II.
I don't care if it's which war it's in, as long as it's a real one. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want a space war. I want a World War I, World War II, Vietnam.
But then if you do the same war over and over, it's the same game over and over, just updated
No, because
graphics.
you change the storyline, you change the characters involved. With a multiplayer, you have maybe updated graphics, better maps than there were before, different kill streaks and perks. Like, you focus on that stuff as opposed to trying to completely change what makes it a Call of Duty game.
But what I'm saying is you can only do so much with the art style with it if you are doing the same war. So if you do World War II, here's an example. If you do World War II, you can do either the Pacific War, or you can do the European War. Like, those are the 2 big things. Obviously, within that, you can choose different battles and all that. But if you're in the European War, for the most part, a lot of the European War fighting style was the same. A lot of the war in the Pacific was the same. Like, you're playing the same game fundamentally. You're just literally changing location. I don't know if I'm a fan of that because it just feels like that should be like a DLC or it should be an expansion pack or something.
I feel like the focus should be more on animation and graphics and particle effects and draw distance and things like that.
I think we're getting to the end though where animation and particle effects are getting to the point where they're going to be increased that much. At least if they keep doing annualization.
Yeah.
I think the biggest issue I have with a lot of these franchises, and it's true with any franchise, is if you release it every year, I am going to get tired because you can't change that much within a year because it takes so long to build a game. I told you guys before we started recording, Assassin's Creed, whatever the new one, I don't know if they've actually released the name of it, whatever the new one's going to be, I'm excited because they have a year off. we know they're going to develop within that year to do something. We don't know what that something is. Yeah. It's rumored to be basically Prince of Persia, which is how Assassin's Creed started. But I think having that extra year will give them a couple things. One, it'll give them the ability to go through and kind of say, hey, here's some ideas. We couldn't use it if we did this a year because it will take too long to get it done, and kind of progress the franchise a little bit further, maybe get better in the details. Because I think what makes a good game good now when it comes to graphics is the details of the world. So the Division, as an example, all the trash on the street. Sure. Like, to me, that's really cool. I don't care. I mean, yes, going through New York City and seeing New York City as a whole is cool, but you couldn't do that in a year. There's no way you could do that in a year, and I think that's part of what they're running into. Yes, it's the corporation versus the developers. It's the businessman versus the artists going at it. And, like, Call of Duty, I think, will always be an annual thing just because of the money it makes. Sucks, but it's true. I wish they would have more leeway with the art, whether it's doing same wars over and over and choosing different locations and maybe tweaking to that, or if it's going through and giving them an extra year and saying, hey, let's do a new gameplay mechanic, but add it on top of what we already have without making it completely different. And I don't really know how you would do that with Call of Duty, because like I said, I'm not a huge fan of it, but I think part of what they're running into a lot of the times, and the reason a lot of games are so similar, is because they have a year cycle, and when they decide to do something different, it looks completely drastic because they have a year to do something different, so they can't spend the time to do evolutionary stuff. If they do something different, it's got to be a whole revolutionary thing, because they've got to sell it. Because why would I buy a game that's similar to Modern Warfare or Black Ops? Let's use Black Ops. I buy Black Ops. If the next game is just like Black Ops, why would I buy it if there's one that's already $20? Like, why would that be a thing? Yeah. So, that's the problem I have if they keep doing the annualization of it and doing the updated graphics. Is cool. There's one that's slightly less graphic fidelity, but it's also half the cost at this point. If they did it every 2 to 3 years, then I think it's a little bit nicer, because then, like I said, you'll have that gap of, oh, this actually looks a lot better. Yeah. If that makes complete sense. Yeah. I went on a rant there, but...
Yeah, it's tough. I don't think any of us have the answers, though. But I think we got a lot of... You guys both at least have feelings on it. I wish there were more Dark Souls yearly, and that's my annualization.
Well, there's no more Dark Souls.
Yeah, Bloodborne, man.
Yeah, I would like to see more of those games. But let us know what you guys think in the comments about annualization and what you think maybe needs to change, or if you are feeling the fatigue that Tom's feeling with something like Call of Duty.
What's the last Call of Duty or Assassin's Creed did you buy? Because those are the two big franchises.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, but let us know in the comments what you think. And thanks for watching. And as always,
welcome to the second level. Bye. Bye.
Do you guys have the Twitters? I'm always on the Twitters. Come say hi to me on the Twitters at Level2Gamers, or if you go to twitter.level2gamers.com, it'll take you right to our page. And come say hi. I like talking to people. I won't bite, I promise.